I worked 6 years for this moment. My mom told me to skip it for my golden child brother. When I was 15, I thought my family was just loud, not broken. Just passionate, not cruel. But by the time I turned 23, I realized some families don't accidentally hurt you. They aim. My name's Mason. And last month I passed my welding certification exam, the one that took me 6 years of night shifts, odd jobs, and exhausted mornings at community college to earn. 6 years of studying with hands so sore I could barely hold a coffee mug. And the night before the most important test of my life, my mom cornered me in the kitchen and said something I'll never forget. Your brother needs help moving his couch. I didn't grow up thinking I was the invisible one. It happened slowly, quietly, like a leak under the floorboards. You don't notice until the house starts sinking. My older brother Chase was always the golden child. 3 years older, somehow always 3 steps ahead in my parents' eyes, even when he wasn't actually going anywhere. His name was painted on the wall above his bed with little footballs and stars. I slept in a room with peeling wallpaper and a bunk bed that creaked like it was tired of holding me. When Chase barely graduated high school, my parents threw him a backyard barbecue. Friends, burgers, music, photos. When I made the dean's list my first semester of community college, my mom glanced at the email and said, "That's nice, honey. Can you take the trash out?" Chase floated from job to job. Gym receptionist, real estate, some crypto thing that ended with him maxing out dad's second credit card. Meanwhile, I worked weekends at a scrapyard, studied on my breaks, and came home smelling like metal and sweat. I'm not the genius type. I'm the grinded out type, the one who gets up at 5 a.m. and learns by repetition, because failure isn't an option. But in my house, Chase could breathe wrong and get praised for his lung capacity. I could be bleeding from both hands and get asked why I was making a mess. The only person who ever really saw me was my grandma, my dad's mom. She called me Maze the Maker because I was always building things out of scraps. Shelves, stools, weird little metal projects I didn't even have names for yet. When she died, I was 17, and when she was gone, whatever small protection I had in that family went with her. After that, I wasn't a son. I was backup. The helper. The errand runner. The one who always had time because apparently having dreams didn't count, unless you wore a suit or posted about it online. And then came the couch. Chase had moved into an overpriced apartment with his girlfriend. That blew up, no surprise, and suddenly he needed help moving into a more modest place. A second-floor walk-up 25 minutes across town, with a couch that apparently weighed as much as his ego. He waited until the night before my welding exam to bring it up. That's when I knew. This wasn't an accident. I was sitting cross-legged on the living room floor. My notes spread out like a shrine, pipe angles, safety codes, weld symbols I'd memorized so deeply they showed up in my dreams. The house was quiet in that fake way, like it was holding its breath. Then Chase walked in like he still lived there. Technically, he'd moved out. Emotionally, the place still belonged to him. The air even smelled like his expensive cologne and entitlement. "Yo, Maze," he said, flicking a rolled-up pair of socks at my leg like we were 12 again. "Tomorrow morning. Couch is a beast." I didn't even look up at first. "Tomorrow's my welding test." He paused, just long enough to process the words, then shrugged. "Oh, right, you're still doing that. Still doing that. Still doing that." Like it was a phase. Like it wasn't 6 years of night shifts, burned hands, and missed weekends. I finally looked over at my mom. She was in the kitchen making tea. She hadn't said anything. Didn't even glance at me. "I've been studying for months," I said carefully, choosing every word. "I need to be there at 8. It's the practical exam." Chase groaned. "Dude, it's just one morning. I'm not asking for a kidney." That's when my mom turned around. She didn't yell. She didn't raise her voice. She used that soft, sweet tone, the one that always meant she'd already decided. "Honey," she said, "your brother's trying to build a real life. He can't do everything on his own." My hands went cold. "And I'm not?" She didn't answer. She just gave me that tired look, like I was being dramatic for even putting myself on the same level. Then she said it. The sentence that cracked something in me. "I think you could reschedule, or skip it. There'll be other tests." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was unreal. I already paid the fee. You can't reschedule it for another 6 months. "This is my shot." She set her mug down harder than necessary. "You're being selfish." Selfish. For wanting one morning. One day that was actually mine. And in that moment, standing there with my future spread across the floor, I finally understood something painful and clear. In this house, my dreams were always optional. Chase's inconveniences never were. The room went quiet after she said it. Selfish. The word just sat there between us. Heavy and final. I remember staring at my notes again, but the letters stopped making sense. Pipe angles blurred. Safety codes turned into noise. It wasn't panic I felt, it was clarity. The kind that hurts more than anger. Chase crossed his arms and leaned against the doorway, like this was already settled. "See," he said. "It's not a big deal." That's when something in me snapped. Not loud, not dramatic. Just clean, calm. "I'm not going," I said. My mom blinked. "Excuse me?" "I'm not helping you move the couch," I repeated. My voice surprised even me. It didn't shake. "I have my exam." Her face tightened. "After everything we've done for you," there it was. The invisible bill. All the rides, the food, the roof over my head, things parents give without keeping score. Unless they're ready to use it as a weapon. I've done plenty too, I said quietly. I work, I help, I show up. This one morning is mine. Chase laughed under his breath. Wow, guess welding school really went to your head. I looked at him then. Really looked. A man pushing 30, still asking his younger brother to save him from basic adulthood. And for the first time, I didn't feel smaller next to him. I felt done. My mom sighed like I was exhausting her. Fine, she said. Do what you want. Don't expect us to drop everything for you later. That night, I barely slept. Not because of guilt, but because of adrenaline. I replayed the conversation over and over, wondering if I'd crossed a line. Then I realized something terrifying and freeing. There was no line. There never had been. I just finally stopped stepping back. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, put on my work boots, grabbed my tools. As I walked out the door, no one stopped me. No one wished me luck. And somehow, that silence felt louder than all the years of noise. The testing center smelled like metal and disinfectant. Hot steel, cold air. My hands were steady, but my chest felt hollow, like I'd left something important behind. Not fear, expectation. Some small, stupid part of me had hoped my phone would buzz. A text from my mom, good luck. We're proud of you. It never came. The examiner handed me my number and pointed me to my station. I pulled on my gloves and helmet, and when the mask came down, the world finally made sense again. Welding is honest. You do it right, it holds. You rush it, it fails. No favorites. No golden, children. As the torch lit, I thought about every morning I woke up at 5, every shift at the scrapyard, every time I studied while my hands cramped and my back screamed. I thought about my grandma calling me Maze the Maker, and how she used to say, people like you don't shine fast, but you shine forever. Halfway through the practical, my arms burned. Sweat ran down my spine. I adjusted my angle, slowed my breath, and kept going. This wasn't just a test. It was proof. Proof that I wasn't lazy, or dramatic, or selfish. I was disciplined. I was capable. I was earned. When it was over, I lifted my helmet and felt lighter than I had in years. The examiner checked my work in silence, nodding once, twice. Then he looked up and said, "Nice weld." 2 words. That was it. But they hit harder than any praise I'd ever gotten at home. I walked outside and sat on the curb, letting the sun hit my face. That's when my phone finally buzzed. A message from Chase. Guess you didn't come. Mom's pissed. No, how'd it go? No, hope you passed. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my email later that afternoon and saw the subject line. Certification results. My hands shook as I clicked. Congratulations. I passed. And for the first time, I realized something that scared me even more than failing ever had. I didn't need them to be proud of me anymore. Walking home that evening, the streets felt quieter than usual. The city buzzed, but I felt separated from it. Like I was in a bubble of calm after 6 years of chaos. Every step I took reminded me of the long nights in the scrapyard, the community college classrooms, and the cramped apartment where I studied pipe angles by the dim glow of a desk lamp. All of it had led here. When I opened the front door, the familiar smells hit me. Dinner cooking, faint cologne, and the lingering scent of Chase's apartment on his jacket. Hanging in the hallway, Mom was in the kitchen, pretending nothing had happened. Chase lounged on the couch, scrolling on his phone, acting like I didn't exist. The tension in the air could have been sliced with a welding torch. I didn't say a word. I went straight to my room, leaving the helmet and gloves by the door. I sat down on my bed, thinking about how invisible I had felt for so many years. How my small victories, my discipline, my dedication, they were dismissed or ignored. And yet I had passed my welding exam. Not for them, not for recognition, not for applause, but for me. Later, Mom knocked softly. "Maze, dinner's ready," she said. I nodded. I didn't want confrontation, didn't need it. Chase didn't even look up. That night, I ate my food quietly, savoring each bite like it was a medal. I realized that family isn't always about validation. Sometimes it's about surviving the people who are supposed to love you the most, while still carving a space to breathe, to shine, to exist. That night, I lay in bed thinking about the next steps, jobs, future certifications, building a life where my achievements were mine alone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a strange mix of peace and fury. Peace because I had finally proven to myself that I could do it. No one's permission needed. Fury because the people who were supposed to see me, they still didn't. But that didn't matter anymore. I had become my own witness, my own champion, and that was everything. The morning after the exam, I woke up with a strange mix of exhaustion and triumph. My hands still ached, and the smell of metal clung to my clothes. But for the first time, it didn't feel like a punishment. It felt like proof. Proof that all the sweat, the late nights, the endless repetition had finally paid off. I glanced at the welding certificate lying on my desk, edges slightly curled from the printer, and couldn't help but smile. Chase, of course, acted like nothing had changed. He was on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling and laughing at some meme, completely oblivious to the fact that my life had shifted in a single day. Mom hovered nearby, offering a quiet, apologetic glance, but still careful not to interfere. It was clear. This house had a hierarchy, and I was slowly learning to exist outside it. I realized I didn't need approval from anyone else to validate my efforts. That day I walked outside, breathed in the crisp air, and felt a sense of freedom I hadn't known since I was a teenager. I remembered all those years of being the spare son, the one who always helped, always waited, always got overlooked. But today, it felt like I had finally carved out my own space. One that no one could invade, no one could diminish. I thought about the future, maybe a bigger workshop, maybe my own welding business, maybe even teaching others. Whatever it was, it would be mine. And in that moment, I understood something important. Family might not always see your value, but that doesn't erase it. You can build your life, claim your victories, and live authentically, even if the people who should care don't acknowledge it. That was the lesson of the past 6 years, and it was finally mine to keep. A few days later, the reality of life returned, but I carried that small victory with me like armor. Chase predictably didn't congratulate me, didn't even mention the exam. He moved through the house with that same effortless entitlement, confident the world still revolved around him, but I didn't let it sting anymore. I realized I was done waiting for validation from him, or from anyone else in that house who had always ignored my efforts. Mom tried to soften the tension with casual remarks. "So, Maze, how's the welding?" But I noticed the way she phrased it, like she was testing me, seeing if I'd still shrink back into that quiet, invisible role. I took a deep breath, smiled, and answered with confidence. For the first time, my achievements didn't need to be small to fit into their narrative. I had spent 6 years proving something, and I had done it. Nobody else's approval could take that away. I spent the rest of the week cleaning up my workspace, organizing my notes and replaying the moments of the exam in my head. Each spark, each weld, each precise movement felt like a small victory against years of being overshadowed. Chase might still get praise for breathing, and Mom might still overlook me sometimes, but I had this undeniable truth. I could succeed on my own terms. And for the first time in a long time, it didn't matter if anyone else saw it. I saw it, and that was enough. By the end of the week, I felt a subtle shift in the house. Maybe they still didn't understand me fully. Maybe they never would, but I no longer needed them to. I had earned my space, my respect, and my future. And that, in a household built on comparisons and favoritism, felt like the greatest victory of all. The morning after my exam, I woke up with a strange mix of exhaustion and relief. My hands were sore, my arms still tingled from the welding, but for the first time in years, I felt light. No one in my family had celebrated me. No one had acknowledged the months of late nights, weekend shifts, and endless repetition I'd endured, but I didn't need their applause. I had passed. I had earned it. And that truth, silent as it was, belonged only to me. Chase, as expected, didn't even ask how it went. He complained about the heat in the apartment, about needing coffee, about how life was so stressful. Meanwhile, I held my head high, knowing the stress I had endured was nothing like his. My accomplishments weren't flashy. They weren't loud. They didn't require an Instagram post or a painted wall to validate them, but they were mine. Every grind, every early morning, every hour spent memorizing safety codes and welding angles had led me here. I had turned scraps, sweat, and determination into proof that I could stand on my own. By that evening, I found myself sitting quietly in my room, notebook in hand, replaying the exam in slow motion. Each step, each weld, each spark felt like a tiny defiance of every dismissive comment, every sideways glance I had endured. I realized something powerful. Their opinions didn't define me. I had built my own measure of worth, one weld at a time. And though my family might never fully see it, I had finally seen it for myself, and that more than anything, was worth more than any praise or recognition Chase had ever received. Weeks later, life settled into a strange rhythm. The house was quieter without Chase's constant complaints and my parents' sideways judgments. I kept welding, kept building, and slowly, a sense of pride began to settle into my chest, the kind that didn't need validation from anyone else. I realized that passing that certification wasn't just about a job or a skill. It was about proving to myself that I could persevere, that I could fight against the weight of expectation and still succeed. Chase eventually called to ask a question about the couch moving, typical. I answered politely with no bitterness, no need for revenge. The difference was that I no longer needed his approval. I had carved my place in the world on my own terms. And for the first time in my life, I felt like more than just the spare son or the helper. I was Mason, the one who grinded, who showed up, who refused to be invisible. That exam, that week, that moment, it wasn't just a certificate. It was my declaration. I see myself, I respect my efforts, and no one else gets to decide my worth. Looking back, I know my family still won't fully understand. They'll see my success maybe, but they'll never see the long nights, the ache in my hands, or the mental battles I fought quietly. And that's okay. Because sometimes, victory isn't about applause, it's about showing up for yourself, over and over again, until even the smallest victories feel like triumphs. And now, whenever I pick up a piece of metal or a welding torch, I don't just see work, I see a story of resilience, grit, and finally being seen.